Steve, you are up north, is that right?
I am. I am. I'm near Edmonton, Alberta, and we're
Okay.
actually probably warmer than some places right now because we're above freezing today, which is not normal for us right now. So a lot of the states is getting snow and storms and all sorts of stuff right now, I hear. So we're pleasantly
Yeah.
warm right now.
Yeah. Well, we're grateful that you're able to be here with us. Hopefully you're inside someplace warm. And I don't think that's a picture from this that you took this afternoon, was it, in your background?
No, not this afternoon. No, no. I am going to share my screen.
Yep. Steve has been on our
Good.
podcast before and just grateful that you're back here with us.
Yeah, you bet. No, I'm excited to be here. I'm also very happy to be in a session that promotes God and gives prayer at the beginning of that. That was very nice to see. That doesn't happen very often anymore. So I'm very appreciative of that. So today's topic, yeah, I'm going to talk about some economics. I'm going to go through it pretty quickly. But I'm going to give a little bit of background here first. Our mission statement actually very similar to your mission statement of this session, Jared. Economic and environmental sustainability for generations. To me, that's a passion, right? That's it. Doesn't say I have to own cows. Doesn't say I have to even own the land. It just has to be economic and environmentally sustainable. And it's not necessarily my kids even, but for future generations, we need to manage the ecosystems and have things profitable. So really important for me. It's kind of neat. I got called out yesterday by Mr. Savory. That is an honor to be called out. The custom grazing guy in Canada, and he didn't even know it. I guarantee you. But I was going to tell that story anyway because Mr. Savory called me out 20 years ago. Young buck. He actually sent me a voice message because back then we didn't have Messenger and we didn't have all these fancy things. I got a voice message from him. He kind of called me out on my economics on I wrote an article in the Stockman Grass Farmer when I first started writing for them. And it was like, wow, Mr. Savory wants to call me. So we had a conversation, and he said, well, something you said in there didn't make sense. You said that you can make a living on 2,500 acres of land, and I don't believe your numbers, and yet whatever. He called me out on it. So we got to chit chat, and our market values were different, right? In his market value, that just wouldn't work in where he was. But me being in Alberta, the prices were good right then, and I could get a higher rate than him. And the end of the conversation, he says, "Yep, you bet, works. Sounds good." So, to have Mr. Savory call me out, that's an honor, and very much respect him and his father too. I mean, his father got me into this big time. I followed him since the beginning. So yeah, I'm the custom grazing guy in Canada. Been doing it for many years. I don't own any cattle and I don't own any land that we graze. I own other pieces of land. I have personal investments, but for the farming itself, we live 45 minutes outside of the fifth largest city in Canada, and agriculture just can't pay for the land. So I moved up this direction. I actually have a family farm in Saskatchewan and saw that it was not a profitable venture the way it was run, and started out on my own because I wanted to make this work. So, yeah, I get criticized quite often because I don't own any cattle. I've heard it numerous times in social media that he doesn't have any skin in the game. I'm teaching about cattle, but don't own any cattle. So, um, I always go back to um, for he owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, right? We are just stewards. I manage the animals. I use those cattle as tools to manage the land, to manage the ecosystems, to, you know, um, the dragonflies and the dung beetles and all the critters. I'm just a steward, and I'm taking care of all those things. And I have to make a profit while doing it, or I wouldn't be allowed to, I wouldn't be continuing to do it. So we've been doing this for about 25 years, and it's you got to adjust and change and adapt, but it's been working well for us. So yeah, I don't have any skin in the game, I guess. So that's all right with me. It's I'm just the shepherd. So what do I teach? I've been teaching for many years, probably for about 20 years, all around the continent anyway. We teach management. Nothing that I'm selling comes in a box, a bag, or a bottle. Just basic management, and I'm always looking for that long-term solution to the problem. I don't look for quick fixes, so it usually comes down to nature. We've heard lots of those presentations over the last 2 days. I mean, I got lots of fun fun presentations, right? I have exciting ones. I have fancy ones. I have some boring presentations. This is probably the second most boring presentation that I give, but I'll tell you the same thing. It's also the second most important presentation that I give. Uh, Unbelievably how important this was. When I learned how to understand my profitability was one of the biggest breakthroughs my ranch ever had. It was very important. So yes, I don't have any fancy pictures and any aha moments in here maybe, but this is very important and to understand the economics behind your business. Yeah, I can't emphasize that enough. So you'll have to deal with it. That this is not the most exciting. I don't have a whole bunch of fancy pictures in here, and sorry, no jokes. Almost no jokes in here, but we'll try and make it at least um, uh, useful for you. That's for sure. Okay, so I want to start with the biggest problem we have in agriculture. The biggest problem we have in agriculture by far. This is a Canadian study. I've seen lots of people posting this graph and they've claimed it's from the US, but it's not. It's actually Darren Qualman from Saskatchewan as a researcher. He did this study from 1926 he updated it to 2020. Basically, it's the net farm income over those years. And if you notice, the top of the blue line is the total net farm income. The top of the green line is what the farmer gets to take home. Okay, does anybody see a problem with this? There's a major issue I have with this. Ag business is taking all the profits. Okay, he breaks it down a little bit further. From 1985 to 2007, the ag business took 100% of the farmer's net farm income. 100%. The farmers took nothing home. They lived off, appreciation, off-farm income, unpaid labor, selling off assets. That's what they survived on. So I always ask people when I show this many, many times. This is a very powerful graph. I ask people, whose fault is this? Whose fault is this? It's the farmer's fault, because every single penny of that blue went through the farmer's bank account. Every single penny, right? We need to take control of this and keep some of that. I mean, back before 1985, that's fair. Like, they need to make a business, make a living too. These businesses, I have nothing against the businesses. They're good at marketing. They're good at selling. They got great salesmen they buy, but we need to keep some of our money in our pocket. And that comes down to understanding economics and doing a profit center analysis. So big changes in here compared to the US. The red blip there that goes below the line, that is actually the drought of 202 and BSE, which hit Canada. So that would not be there in the US version of this, but I'm pretty sure the rest of it is very similar to the US. What happened in 207 that kicked this into gear was the US opened up the corn ethanol market, and all of a sudden prices went up. So you take 40% of the US corn out of the market, then our Canadian grain prices went up as well. So the grain farmer got this little blip here from 2007 on. So yeah, we need to fix this. Okay, we're taking home less than 3% right now. Before that, we used to at least get 35 cents out of every dollar. So that's my mission. I want to fix this. I want every farmer to see this graph and say, "Hey, that's not right. We need to do something about it." So Jared pulled that up right at the beginning. The difference between economics and finances. Two completely separate types of books, and everybody needs to understand that. There's so many people that just think it's money. Okay, real quick. Economics is my business profitable? Right? Is it going to make a profit over time? Finances is really, can I cash flow it? Right? Do I have the finances at the certain point of time to make this happen? Very, very different sets of books. And I manage both of them on my farm. I have to understand both of them. I mean, a banker will finance you for something that is economically unsound, right? You can go get a loan as long as you can pay it back. They're happy. In the long, 10 years down the road, you actually lost money on it. Whereas you can have something that's economical that you can't finance because of the situation. So we have to kind of run both tests. Today, I'm just talking about economics, but both are very, very important. So I'd like to start my topic basically is your farm repeatable? The biggest gift the outgoing generation can give to the next generation is to make your farm repeatable before you hand it over. Okay, what I mean by repeatable is, could you do the exact same thing on a different piece of land, right? Buy more land with a loan, right? Have a mortgage on it, buy more cattle with a mortgage with a loan on it, buy the equipment, buy everything else, and would that business run the same as the one you're currently doing? Okay. What's happened is the outgoing generation, they've worked hard, my dad included, worked hard, invested in land, invested in equipment, invested in cattle, didn't pay themselves, had a lot of off-farm income coming in, land appreciation was a big one. And now they're sitting there, everything's paid off, and they're comfortable. They can go out and, go on a holiday, and they can buy a new pickup truck. But if you were to sell that business to the next generation, well, that money that they went on a holiday with and bought a new pickup with, that's going to payments, and the next generation can't do the same thing. Joel Salatin's phrase is, "What got you here won't get you there." Okay, how we farmed in that generation will not work right now. We have to change it. It's a different system right now. So we got to make sure that it's repeatable. The most successful businesses on the planet are franchises, right? McDonald's, A&W, all these franchises that you basically buy the recipe to make this business work, right? Very few of those businesses fail because you bought a recipe and now it's proven to work. The business strategy is proven. So let's do that with our farms. Let's make them repeatable. Can you set up your farm so that you could repeat it and do the same thing? All right, let's look into that a little bit. So real simple. I like to break things down very simple and give simple tools, because if it's too complicated, producers don't want to do it. They don't put the energy into it. So really simple. I want to look at a gross margin. Right? A gross margin is made up of your gross product minus your direct costs. And this is your margin right here, the difference between them. Okay, and it doesn't matter if you increase your gross product. If your costs go up at the same value, your margin's the same. You're no further ahead. Or if you're a low cost producer and you lower your costs, right, minimal, like we're the best. But if your margin or your gross product comes down because of it and your margin's the same, you're no further ahead. So the goal I have is to extend that margin, not be the highest production or the low cost producer, because all of these right here make the same amount of profit. All right. And there's only 3 ways to make more profit. Okay, I'm going to take those same bar graphs. We got our gross revenue and our direct costs. You can make the big number bigger. Okay, you can try and make the big number bigger, or you can make the small number smaller. Right, either one of those is going to stretch your margin out. Third way to make more profit is to increase turnover. So do more of it. Now, the biggest mistake a lot of producers make is they do number 3 first. Right? They're losing money. They think that we got to get bigger to make more money. So what happens if you have a negative margin and you increase turnover? You lose money faster. Congratulations. Okay, so first thing we got to do is see if we can make the big number bigger and the small number smaller. If you've got that working, then you can increase turnover, but not before. Okay, that's a major issue a lot of people have. And in the cattle industry, we do it by accident. Okay, I'm going to explain to you why. Now, most producers don't understand that. It doesn't make sense to them because most farms are set up this way. Okay, we've got a negative margin and we don't even know it. You know why we don't know it? Is because we have so many subsidies in agriculture. Okay, any other type of business doesn't have these subsidies. So how do we make this work? We actually have a negative margin in a lot of cases. There's the cattle industry is kind of structured to fail. We have so many people that want to farm, want to be ranchers, and if you produce at a loss and you flood the market with a product that's below cost, well, then everybody's prices come down. So that's what we're having. We have so many hobby farmers, and I'm talking hobby farmers that are 1,000 head. They're losing money, but they still sell their calves on the commercial market, and that lowers the price for everybody. So how do we make this work? We subsidize our farm businesses. One of the biggest subsidies is government subsidies, right? We get all sorts of subsidies, fuel, discounts, government direct grants, even vehicle insurance, things like that. It's all a subsidy that we get, that our businesses as a farmer we get, but other ones don't. So we get a little bit out of that. That's all right. Unpaid labor. I grew up when I talked about charging myself labor, my dad laughed at me, right? I remember talking to a neighbor and he said, "You can't charge yourself. Don't be ridiculous," right? That was just the mentality of farmers back then. It's unpaid labor. I actually despise that term. When the government studies come out and they talk about this unpaid labor, I'm like, that's some crazy talk. Off-farm income. For years, people have put money into their farms and keep putting money into it. Now, don't get me wrong. If your business is profitable, but it's just not big enough to support a family, there's 100% you can have some off-farm income. The issue I have is where every year, right? Let's say that you need $60,000 to support your family, okay, and you take $20,000 of labor and wages from your farm. That's fine. That's a profit that's coming to you, but that's all it can actually pay you because it's a small farm. You need somebody to work off farm to bring in the other 40. Okay, that's perfectly fine. The problem I have is when you have $80,000 worth of off farm income because you need 60 to live and you push 20 into the farm every year. Okay, that's not acceptable. Now, to start off, yes, you might need some money to get going, but to bank on that every year that you need that extra money, that's where I have a problem with off-farm income. I remember when I started into this, everybody criticized me because I still had a job. Well, my farm was pretty small, right? They used to use me as a poster boy about a farmer that can get started with nothing and do this, make this profitable business. But I don't care if you can pay yourself $300 an hour if you only have 30 or 20 hours of labor a week. That's not enough to support a family. So we need to make sure that we have a business strategy, not just our farm income there's nothing wrong with it as long as you're not subsidizing your farm with it. Okay, so you see our margins getting a little closer together there. Land appreciation is a huge one. My father is sitting really well. He's got a lot of land. He's a millionaire sitting on land. Okay, but I don't think he made any money on his farm the whole time up. He made most of his money on land appreciation. Whether they say you're land rich but dirt poor, right? We struggled, for years and years and years trying to make the farm work. Land appreciation is what got him where he is. And a lot of producers are like that. We've got to understand that. There's nothing wrong with that. There's a real estate profit center there, right? We bought land, invested in it, and now we're doing well. Wonderful, great. But don't, make sure you know where that wealth came from. It came from a real estate investment. It didn't come from your agriculture. Okay. And the last one is inheritance. A lot of people inherit land and then you don't have to pay rent for that land and you can go out and farm it the way you're farming it. We can also have inheritance in equipment and livestock. And not only, it doesn't have to be inheritance that your family passed, somebody passed away and gave it to you. It could be that you just get to borrow it, right? You're working on the family farm and you're borrowing dad's tractor. Right? You didn't have to buy it, but you get to use it. So that's a type of inheritance. You need to value that cost in your economics to make sure we're repeatable. All right, so now all of a sudden, with all these subsidies, we see a positive margin. Okay, there's our little margin, and we're making money at it. We got some money in the bank, we got some cash flow going, and we decide we're going to do more of it. Okay, but we weren't profitable to begin with. Without these things, we were not profitable. And that's where I say, if the best gift you could give to the next generation is to make your business work without these things so that they have a chance at surviving. Because right now, working harder does not work, right? You have to understand business. You can't just, we'll rent another piece of land and do more of it. That doesn't work anymore. It used to, but it doesn't work anymore. So making your farm repeatable is the best gift that you can give. All right. Find somewhere that does a profit center analysis. Okay, this is a schematic. I'm not going to go through the whole thing today. We don't have time, but we need to make sure that our businesses are profitable. Today, what I'm going to do, and if anybody wants to email me, I'll give you the calculator. It's a very simple calculator, and it just looks at the contribution margin, okay? This part of it, of one profit center. I figured over the years that if it gets too complicated, people don't try it. But if you give them something to give them, something simple to try, then they kind of get hooked on it and they're like, okay, well, let's expand this and do more, right? So I'm going to give you a real simple tool. Anybody could make it on a spreadsheet, but it's the fact that it's made and it's really easy to use. So I'm going to run through it here quick and just show you what we're doing here. So real quick, one profit center, right? I'm going to go through the grazing profit center, but you could have a hay profit center. You could have a grain profit center, vegetables, chickens, feedlot, pasture pigs, pasture, whatever. This is one profit center on your farm. So basically, we've got a gross product at the bottom. You subtract direct costs from it, gives you a gross margin. Okay. From there, our contribution margin is our gross margin, subtract our profit center overheads. Okay, that's all we're going to look at for today. So it's really simple. It's a big number minus a little number. Okay, our gross product needs to be a big number, and our direct cost needs to be a little number. And then we get a positive gross margin. And same thing with the contribution margin. We need a big number as a gross margin, and a little number as a profit center overhead, and that'll give us a positive contribution margin. Okay, so
Are you using profit center synonymously with enterprise?
yes,
What we would call that?
yes. Some
Okay,
people
thank you.
call them enterprises. I call them a profit center. Yeah, you bet.
Makes
Yep. So we're just going to look at one of those today and just this part of it. Okay. I've got some ratios that I want to explain first. They might not make sense to you quite yet, but I'll go through it quick. Now, these are ratios for my farm and my environment and my operation. You might want to make your own ratios or have some kind of target, just a benchmark for me. So I have something called a gross margin ratio. It's my gross margin divided by my gross product of a profit center. Okay. And I want it to be about 50%. So above 25% is okay. Anything below that, I'm not happy with. But if I'm over 50%, that's excellent. I'm super excited about that. Okay. And I'll tell you right now, I put the bar pretty high. Pretty high. And I might not be above 25% the first year of trying something. But if I'm going to try and get there, I want to be higher than that. Okay. So that's what I'm looking at. So let's explain it on our little tree here. So our gross product divided by our gross margin. Okay. So basically, out of every $100, I would like $50 in direct costs, which gives me $50 to go forward into my business analysis. Okay. So that's the 50% right there. Really simple. Out of that, we also want a contribution margin ratio. So my contribution margin divided by my gross product. I want it to be 40%. So to put it in simple terms, of that $50 now, I want $10 to go to overheads, which gives me $40 to move forward to cover my business overheads. Okay, so that's really what my benchmarks are showing. Out of every $100, I want $40 going forward. All right. Now, the reason I have those is my contribution, my gross margin ratio, I can compare field to field or, the profit center or within a profit center. My contribution margin ratio, now I can compare profit centers to profit centers. I can compare my hay to my grazing. But that's the reason I have the two of them. And I also have a rent ratio for my operation in my environment. Yours might be different. Basically, it's my rent divided by my gross product. I'd like to see it at 30%. So let's say I have a piece of land that could make me $10,000, right? Rent, I want it under $3,000. Real simple numbers. Okay, so you'll see in my calculator, I have these benchmarks there, and that's telling me, which part of that field is not working. Okay, so we'll look at it real quick here. A simple version of the calculator. This is what you're going to get if you email me. We've got our big number at the top. Here's our grazing revenue. And again, you could do this for anything. You could do this for pasture pigs. You could do it for chickens. You could do it for anything. This one just happens to be for grazing. My big number's at the top, and then my little number's in the middle, and then my contribution margin is at the bottom. Okay, real simple. I do this for every piece of land I rent. Every piece of land. It's important. And I do it every year to make sure we're still on target. Okay, so let's say I can bring in 100 animals at $1 a day and I can get 120 days on pasture. Okay, that's a custom grazing rate. We got $12,000 in a big number, total gross product. All right, costs in this example. I'm just gonna throw numbers out. Usually if I'm in a workshop session, I actually get people from the crowd to give me numbers, but we don't have time today, so I'm just gonna make up some numbers. This is so important to have your numbers in here, not mine, but we're gonna make up some numbers. So a water system cost here. I'm gonna say it cost me $3,000 to buy a solar system. Um, Probably will last me 10 years. So I actually amortize that because we're looking at economics, not finances. Finances, I had to buy it on the first year, but on year 2, I didn't. And year 3, I didn't. So I'm going to amortize that over 10 years and divide it by the 160 acres because it's a full quarter. That works out to $1.86. Again, the numbers don't really matter. You're going to do your own numbers anyway. Cross fencing, same thing. I'm going to put cross fencing costs in there. Cost me $5,000 labor and equipment to put it all up. My fences, I think they last at least 20 years. Worked out to $1.56. Okay. Spring setup labor, right? This is something I have to do every year. Got to go out there. I can't amortize this because it's an every year thing. Let's say it takes me 2 days at 8 hours a day at $50 an hour to go out there and get everything set up. Works out to $5 an acre, right? I got to get fences all up, fix anything that the wildlife damaged, and basically get it ready for livestock to show up. Okay, so there's $5 an acre. Grazing labor. Let's say I'm going to go move every 2 days, and it costs me 2 hours at $50 an hour. I got 120 days of grazing, so that's going to be at least 60 trips, probably a couple extra because something always goes wrong somewhere, right? I usually like to bump that up a little bit, but for here, let's keep the numbers nice and easy. $6,000 divided by 160 acres is $37.50 an acre. Okay, and land rent. This is varies depending on the type of production, the area, your market values. If it's your own land, then you need to put in an opportunity rent. What is that worth if you had to rent it from someone else? Or if you could rent it out, what would that be worth? Okay, and I'm just going to pick $30 an acre for this one. That's common around us. Okay, so we put in $30 an acre. Now the actual calculator has more lines. If you have different things in here, you're welcome to add them. There's some blank lines as well. But our contribution margin is negative $147. Are we making money yet? In this case, don't forget that in your spring setup labor, in our grazing labor, and even in our fencing and water systems, we had some labor and equipment costs in there, right? If we ran that at $50 an hour, that's paying for some of your equipment and paying for your time. So, or maybe we hired someone to do that. So technically that's already paid some of our labor, but I need some profit or else I can be as environmental as I can. But if I lose the land, then I lose the land, right? There's no sense in doing it if you're not being profitable. So how do we make this bigger? Here's my contribution margin ratio, negative 1.23, and my rent ratio is at 40%. Those aren't working for me. I need to fix those up a little bit. So how do we do it? Anybody remember how? We make the big number bigger or we make the small number smaller. Exactly. Okay, we're not going to increase turnover, right? Increasing turn. Let's do another one of these. No, let's not do another one of these. That was a huge mistake I made early on. I just wanted to get more land. So I would go out and try and rent anything I could. And I was willing to pay the land rent that whatever the neighbor was going to pay, right? Like I wouldn't negotiate. I would just take the land. Well, if the neighbor's making money at it, I can, right? No, that was a mistake. So let's do that. Let's make the big number bigger. Is there any way we can get more animals out there? Well, you could add some fertilizer or you could, do something else, but your costs are going to go up there too. Number of animals is going to be tough because you're going to get fewer days as well. Now, long term, yeah, I could bale graze on this land, completely change the land and improve it. So year 1, I might not be making a profit, but maybe year 2, I would. So there's other ways of doing it without just adding costs. Can I get more revenue? Can I negotiate? Very important skill on my ranch over the years has been communication, being able to communicate with these landowners and or with the cattle customers. That's something that I've worked really, really hard on over the years. So I might be able to increase my rate a little bit. Days on pasture, as I improve it, I might get more days, right? So that number can go up. But to begin with, probably the only thing I can play with is maybe revenue. So let's say that I'm really good at my communication and I managed to find a customer that would pay me a little bit more. Okay, made my big number go up a bit. Um, did it change a whole bunch? Went up from 12,000 to 14,400. Contribution margin ratio is now at least positive. It's 15.64%. But I want it over 40. I'm still not where I want it to be. And my rent ratio, I want it under 30. I'm still not there. So in a glance, I'm still not where I want to be. Okay, well, let's keep working. Let's look at making the small number smaller. So I've got, in this example, I've got water system costs, fencing, spring setup, grazing labor. Let's try and knock them down. Okay. Water systems, cross fencing, those are pretty cheap. Grazing labor is my big one. So how do I knock it down? Okay. Let's say I move every 3 days. Drop my numbers down here a little bit. So instead of 6,000, I'm down to 2,000. Okay. I lowered my stock density though. I might not have as many animals out there. So that dropped to $12.50. Okay. Now I'm over my 40%. I'm under my, I'm still over on my rent ratio though. So I might want to go talk to a landowner. Talk to a landowner too about lowering that rent. So very quick through that. I'm sorry if you didn't quite get all the numbers. By all means, go back to it. I'll give you the calculator. If you have any questions, email me. But the one thing I want to say, I heard a speaker say it earlier today, make your stock density as high as you can. Okay, I would like to say make your stock density as high as you can, but still be profitable. Because the higher you make your stock density, the more labor and equipment costs, right? Huge difference. Let's say you got a pasture right outside your back door, right? Labor and equipment cost isn't much because you're right there. But if your land is 50 miles away and you're going to go move 8 times a day, your labor goes through the roof, right? Environment makes a big difference. What are your labor costs, right? If I was in an area that I could get really, really low labor, I was in Colombia last year. You could hire somebody for $250 a month to work for you. That was minimum wage. I'd be mob grazing everything. But in my environment in Alberta with our oil field prices, I can't keep a guy for $35 an hour. So it's hard. You got to make sure you're managing your costs and watch your profitability. You can't just keep going higher stock density or you'll end up losing it anyway. So, okay. Again, I think I'm getting close to my time now, aren't I?
Yeah, pretty much
Yep.
at the time there, but this
Perfect.
is great. And kind of wrap up, how do we get a hold of you? What's the next
Yeah,
step to be able to learn more from Steve Kenyon?
sure. S Kenyon at greenerpasturesranching.com. Put it in the chat there. Um,
Yeah.
we do teach a school. I was honored. I got partnered through the Stockman Grass Farmer with Joel Salatin. We teach a business management school through there. That's an honor. I was privileged to be working with him. We do a winter session called Wednesday Night Networking. There's a podcast. There's contact for that for registration as well. And Facebook's probably my most active social media. And we've got a bunch of videos out on YouTube if you want to follow it up. But yeah, that's it. I'm excited to be a part of this, Jared. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Yeah, I'm really grateful. Like you broke down that, oh, I struggle teaching the economics and you made it super simple. Big number, little number. We,
Yeah, it is that simple. I always
that's,
say that I'm a nerd translator, right? I
I
can take
love it.
something kind of complex and just break it down into simple terms because that's how my brain works, and I help people that way. I think that's my skill.
Yeah. I honestly would love to have you back and as we dive into in our 2-day class. Um, we're gonna bring, well, let's go ahead and let's pin Matt here. And Matt, we're grateful that you're here. Matt is gonna talk business. He's not a rancher, he's not a, but he understands business. Um, and so anyways, we make this transition. Steve, with your experience in consulting with others and your own business, and you kind of seeing maybe the, I don't know, it seems super cumbersome to me to run all this stuff through spreadsheets. Is there a way to make it simpler? I mean, do you use QuickBooks? Do you do classes in QuickBooks? I know there's other software out there, but or do you just need to buckle down and have the discipline to do it in a spreadsheet?
Yeah, but the spreadsheets are so much easier now, right? When I first learned this, it was all on paper, right? You were sitting at a
Okay.
desk and you're doing a calculator and you're running everything. And if you made a mistake, you had to back up and redo everything. Now I've got it all on a spreadsheet. It's just a matter of plugging it in numbers and it does all the math for you. So it's not that big of a deal. Like I said, I give you the simple tool because look how quickly we did that. Right? It doesn't take long and it gets you that
Yeah.
idea. Now I challenge you, do the full farm. Find a place that does a profit center analysis and do your whole farm and figure that out. The biggest breakthrough my farm ever had. I was going broke before and I didn't even know it, and I learned how to do that, and it turned my farm around.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, definitely. And so did you say, are you teaching another class right away?
No, nothing planned right now, but if anybody wants one, we're portable. We'll go anywhere.
Okay. Yeah, I think that'd be great. Be great to spend some time with you. So